Hello, thanks for joining. Today is going to be the first of many live streams that I'm going to be doing throughout the day. This is just a way to break the day up as I kind of go throughout October. I want to take part in the Hacktoberfest. So we will be contributing plenty of pull requests to stuff. But today is obviously the 1st of October, and I just want to start today by getting set up with a project, an idea that I have. So the idea, going back many, many years, when I first started to code, one of the things that I built was something very similar to what we have here. So this is my inspiration, okay? We have this forum software called XMB. It's pretty old now. There's a lot of newer modern replacements for the forums. A lot of people, prefer to use Discourse and Slack and things for communities, and those have their places for stuff. But at heart, I still very much remember my days on forums and building communities there. Similar to PHPB, PHPBB, this was again another kind of script or system you could use to build out the forums, like to run a community. Like I had development communities that I used to run, and it was just a way for kind of friends to kind of communicate, collaborate, upload things, and share what they're working on. So kind of really, this idea really takes me back to my youth and where I kind of started out. So I kind of want to recreate a forum system. Very, very bare bones, like I'm talking super simple functionality, but hopefully over time we can add to it. So I've given it a name and I've called it Jamstack Forum. I'm not 100% on the name, so if we have any suggestions, let's go ahead and update that. But I've gone ahead and also create some issues on things that are probably required in kind of a forum system. So let's go ahead and have a look at some of the issues that we need to kind of fill throughout October. I'm hoping by the end of next week we will have something solid. We will have what we got here. We've got the initial setup. Well, we're going to do that today probably. Maybe not in this video, but later on this evening, we'll stream again, getting that project set up. We're going to need some simple auth context that contains ways for people to register and keep access to that current user. We're also going to need a simple registration flow and a login flow so people can register for an account and sign in. Then we're going to need a simple page layout because we need to navigate throughout the forum. So we're going to need some kind of simple header, footer, whatever. We haven't even decided. This is totally unplanned. It's just an idea that I kind of want to explore and throw myself into the deep end, and let's just figure this out together. Then we'll kind of create a ask page. This could be better named, but this is a way for people to kind of create a new thread. And that's what that page will be. We're going to obviously need a index page of threads as well. So the main homepage you come to will look. I don't want to make it look like this, where it's like, this is a bit old school. We have these categories and forums, and kind of feels as though there's kind of places for discussions to happen. And I don't know. I feel it's a bit too strict to kind of copy the layout one for one there. But what we could do is we could kind of just list all of the threads, and then we can kind of show inside of each of the threads what forum that is. And we'll provide a simple drop down perhaps on the page to change between those categories. So you can kind of view all of the threads in one category if you want. But I think the default page should show all of the recent threads. We'll order them by the recent activity, so people can kind of see where the fun's happening and get involved and discuss all the things you want to discuss. So we're going to create this forum software. We're going to be using I've decided to use Next.js with use SWR and GraphQL. And there's a few different ways we could obviously use GraphQL and have a backend for that. And we'll explore what we're going to use in this video. Now we'll get the database set up there. And then, as we've created the index page, we'll move on to creating the individual thread page so we can see all of those posts. Then we'll go ahead and create the individual category pages. We'll create a page for today's posts so we can see what's happening today. And then we'll kind of create the ability to kind of view answered and unanswered posts. And then to top it off, we will add a like and unlike. And I think as an MVP, that's probably good enough, right? That's probably all we need to do to get people kind of in here discussing and working on stuff. So seems quite fun, and I'm really interested to see what we can do going forward, building this out. So let's dive in and get started. You can probably see in my tabs here that I've got Hasura open. I've just signed up to Hasura. I've kind of looked at the documentation. I kind of want to just give this a spin and see what's going on here. So let's have a look. Let's have a look at this. So what do we got? We've got nothing in our query. So we're going to need to create. Looks like you don't have any tables. Click on the data tab to open to create some tables. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and create some tables. So the first table for our forum, well, if we look back at, our inspiration, who's online, let's open a post here. So we've got author. So let's call this, we'll add a new table and we'll call this users. I don't know if there's any kind of naming convention with tables, but we'll go with users. Then we'll add a ID, and let's use a UUID. We'll make that unique as well. And then we're going to have a name, and this is going to be string or text. It's going to be a text field. It's not nullable, and we're going to need an email as well, because that's how we want to authenticate. Is text as well, or can we put email? I didn't know if there was any validation. We'll stick with text. I suppose we're just creating a table, right? So we can add all that validation on the client side. We'll make the email unique as well. So we'll make it unique. We'll add an index for that shortly. And then, how do we want to do authentication? I'm just checking this stream is okay. Yeah. How do we want to do authentication? Well, maybe we could just handle this. Yeah, let's just create the authentication ourselves. It's we'll save this as text. Can we encode this? Nah, let's just use bcrypt or something to encode the password on the front end, or on the server at least. Password. One of the thing that I quite liked back in the day of the of being on forums was I kind of I used to come in from school, right? And I used to go on this forum all the time. It was about Flash, an action script back in the day. And one thing that I used to do was kind of just see who had been online recently. There was none of this kind of real chat stuff going on that we've got today. People kind of just posted and waited for people to reply. It was really sad, I think, but I had great fun and fond memories waiting to see who had been online, and then interacting with those through private messages and things. So let's maybe store last seen. And can this be... Oh, well, this has a timestamp. Yeah, we'll use timestamp. Frequently... we'll leave that empty for now. I'm not sure how we should deal with that. I'll put now and we'll see what happens, I guess. And I remember before when I was adding ID, we had created at, and then we will add updated at. So we've got, for our users table, we have ID, name, email, password, last seen, created at, and updated at. It's fairly straightforward. And then the primary key, turn off my notifications. Yeah, primary key. Can we choose email as well? Yeah, okay. So I wonder what this will do. Yeah, that might allow us to filter by email. Foreign keys, we'll create that separately shortly. Add any constraints. I don't think I have any constraints that I can think of. So let's add that table. So we've got that table added. It's added in all of our unique stuff. We've got constraints and custom GraphQL root fields. What is this? Okay. So these are the kind of the default. Okay. So primary key here, PK. I'm guessing that's going to be a query type that has arguments, and we can pass in ID and now email because we chose that. So it does seem okay. Insert users. We could probably name these better. Users by peak. I'm going to call this a user. I like to, it's very simply just users and user, and I can pass in the arguments instead of saying by primary key. It's not really important, I don't think. Select aggregate, users aggregate. Well, we'll just leave the default. I'm a bit nervous whether we should kind of change defaults and, let's not get ahead of ourselves, but let's stick with the defaults of Hasura, because no doubt we're going to get ourselves into trouble, and we're going to have to visit the documentation, and we're going to have to kind of context switch all the time between what we've named things and what they're naming things. So I like when documentation just follows the rules, and if we follow the rules, everything should just work. So hopefully we've got an hour today, so 45 minutes to an hour to get this database configured. And then the next thing our users will have is why don't we add the categories? Categories is quite high level as well. Categories is going to have an ID. It's going to have a title, which will be text. Or we'll call it a name. Category name or title. Category name. I'll call it name because I've used user's name. Probably regret that. Name and things, huh? Name and things. Categories. Will categories have anything else? They'll just have a name. We don't really need the created at and updated at. I'm not really bothered when categories are created. I don't think. No, I don't think that's necessary. So let's go ahead and create categories. That's fairly a straightforward one. So we've got users and categories. They're kind of too high level. They're not related in any way. Now let's go ahead and create something that maybe is related. And let's call this threads. Okay. So now we'll have a look at creating a thread. We'll create ID. We'll make that unique so we can filter on it here. I am interested in the created at and updated at timestamps. Threads will also have a title, I'm guessing, or a name. What do we call this? Title or name? Let's call this title, and we'll call this text. Then, what else are we going to have? Let's look at our inspiration again. Wow. It's still going as well. 2020. It's amazing. Social discussions. Let's have a look. 2015. Wow. I think I was using this in 2005 or 4 or whatever. Blast from the past. So thread's got a title or a subject. Should it be subject? Should we call this subject a thread subject? Nah, let's stick with title. And also one thing I've noticed is down here, we've got a closed topic, which is good. And in some modern forums today, we've got the ability to mark things as answered, and we're going to need those answered pages from our issues. So yeah, let's go ahead and first we'll create this locked instead of closed. I don't like the word closed. Locked feels like it's a system thing. Closed feels like, I don't know, you are closing it to exclude people, and that's not what we're doing here. We're locking the thread to, you know, if you know, we need to close the thread, or it's just an announcement that doesn't need any responses or whatever, you know, then I don't know. I really don't know. I'm not thinking about that in too much detail. A Boolean default value will be false, and that goes for answered as well. We'll call this answered. We'll make that false. And yeah, we got an ID. Create that, updated that. Title locked, answered. Pinning threads as well. Pinned. So I may have an introductions. I don't know if this form will have one. But this is our inspiration. Yeah, I'm not sure if this will, but I remember the ability to kind of pin stuff, and it would kind of just stay at the top, which was nice. So let's create a Boolean type for that, and we'll choose false as the default value. Now, threads. A thread is just like a containing body of all the posts, and I want to keep this really simple, so I'm thinking that when you create a thread, kind of the first message of that thread is just a post that belongs to the thread. So we don't have something here called message. I think that gets really messy. I may be wrong, but this is what we're going to go with because naming things is hard. And then we're going to need a relation to our user. I imagine. Is this a reference? So this is what I like about GraphCMS is you can kind of just create all this stuff visually. You haven't got to really think about things in a database context. Okay, so it is just a kind of a foreign field, a foreign key we're creating. Threads can't be nullable. I'm not making anything nullable here, which I think is fine. These have default values, so they will always be true or false. Yeah, I think that's what we need. Okay, foreign keys. Foreign keys reference table is going to be users, and we're going from the author ID to ID of the users table. Okay. On update violation, on delete violation, we probably just want to cascade. No. Do we? I don't know which way around this is. This is not. Yeah, it's probably the other way we need to cascade, right? It's not clear what is going on from. Yeah, let's just leave that as restrict for now. That was the default one, so that'll probably not allow us to delete users if there's threads that belong to it, which for now is fine. Let's not worry about that. Create unique keys. Add a unique key. Do we need to add anything unique? Nope. I think we're good. Next, we've got threads. We've got threads that have a relation to author. We've now got a relationships tab via foreign keys. Add a new relationship via foreign keys. That's cool. Suggested object relations, because I have threads.author ID going to users ID. It's asking, do I want to create that? And we'll call this author. Threads have authors, not users. Users is a system term, I guess. When we're querying, maybe you just call it author. I don't think it really matters. Again, naming things. Now let's have a look at creating a new table for our posts, and we'll add the default UUID of ID. We'll say this is unique, and let's create the first relation that I know we're going to need, which is thread ID. UUID. It's not nullable because post will always belong to a thread, and a post will also be by a user, which is of UUID. Again, everything must have a thread and an author, and yeah, message is text. What time are we on? 15, 16 minutes, 20 minutes I think we've been going. We've almost got our database done. Frequently used columns. We will add created at, and we will add updated at, because we do want to allow the ability to update posts. So it'd be nice to show that it was updated, right? Those are the default values. Okay, cool. Primary key is ID. Foreign key is, let's set up these foreign keys. So reference table is, I've missed out categories on the threads. I think we should go back and do that. So we'll finish this first. Reference table is threads, and we'll go from thread ID to the ID there. And that's all on there. We'll save that. We'll add a new foreign key, and we'll say users from author ID to the user ID, and we'll save that, and we'll go ahead and create a table. So we're flying. Let's go back to threads, and we'll modify threads to include a new column, and we'll call this category ID, and UUID as the type here. I think that's right. It's non-nullable. Yeah, every thread must belong inside a category. There's no way to kind of, I know visually we're going to kind of display everything as all categories, which is fine. We'll just query for threads. And let's go to relationships and add posts.threadID. Did I save this? Oh, I didn't set a foreign key. Okay. Categories, we'll go from category ID to the ID there, and we'll save this. Relationships. Okay, cool. We've got a suggested object relation. So a thread belongs to a category, which is fine. And then we have an array relationship, and that is threads have posts. Now if we go back to posts, and we set up relationships, let's give us the suggested one. So post, we'll call this author. So this is kind of weird. Like I understand I've created the foreign key, but then I have to kind of do this extra step to create the relation. I guess I'm really used to using GraphCMS's way of creating references between models. I can kind of choose whether it's a one-to-many, many-to-one, one-to-one, or many-to-many, or a union type. I can do that all in one place, and I can specify the both ends of that relation in one go, more or less. But here's kind of an extra step. But I understand we're kind of thinking in database terms here. We're not really thinking in GraphQL, although the output here is GraphQL. I guess. Suggested foreign keys post.thread thread underscore ID goes to the thread. Yes. So a post has a post belongs to a thread. Yeah. And then a thread has many posts. I think that is set up correctly. I think. Right. Then lastly, what's left for our MVP? Today's posts. We don't need anything for that. We can just query by the date. Answered, we have the answered Boolean. Add an unlike and like button. Okay, so we're going to need to store likes for our users. We'll call this likes. Or votes. I don't know. We'll call it likes, I guess. Majority of people are familiar with that, what that means. Columns ID. Call this post ID, UUID, and we will choose user ID this time. Yeah, because like a like doesn't have an author, it's just somebody that did it. So this may get confusing, and this is where naming things always comes to bite you in the ass. Add a foreign key, and we're going to go to posts, and we're going to go from post ID to the ID of our posts and save that relation. We'll then create a new foreign key and go through this same process to link the user. We'll go from user ID to ID of user. Save that. I think we have our relationship set up. We don't need to store when the person liked it. It's just a meta table, really. It's a through table between users liking posts and what have you. You can like many, and posts can have many likes. I'm guessing this is an okay way to do it. I don't want to store it on the user model as an array, because then you've got to filter by the array, and it just becomes a bit ugly to manage. So this is probably the simplest way. I'm sure there's better ways, and as we go out through October and we create more issues, maybe we can tag these with Hacktober, and we can get some others in on the fun here, because I'm just kind of recreating my childhood as I go through building something similar to this. I spent most of my youth on this, like I've said, and I kind of want to replicate something similar but with a modern twist. And I think we've got the database set up now. We've got it set up to work the way we want. Yeah. We'll probably need to. We'll probably need to add a constraint for likes at some point to say a user can only like the post once. It's not like they can only like it once. So maybe there's a constraint we can write there, or maybe we could just filter that on the front end depending on what mutation you run. So now we've created that. Let's have a look in graphical. It's not giving me the message that I haven't done anything. Let's open up the docs, or why don't we have a look at the Explorer? That'd be better. So I'll say, okay, cool. So we've got our queries now for all of the tables we've created. So we've got our users, and we've got these here, and we can run that query, and obviously it'll return none. Docs, we've got mutations here as well. So insert posts. So let's just do a mutation to insert users one. We only want to create one user object. We'll give this an email, and we'll say this is hi. Let's do my email, jamie@notrab.dev, and name is going to be Jamie Barton, and we will add a password. Password So we're going to encrypt the password ourselves. We're not going to do this here because this is just a test. But whatever you do, don't make your password ABC. And we'll bring back that email name and run that mutation. Okay, cool. So we've got that mutation working. And this mutation will probably run on from a serverless function or a Next.js API route, because we're going to need to kind of generate that password. And I don't think users should have access to creating this mutation. So maybe we need to kind of restrict who has access to doing this stuff. Hasura is quite good as well. We've got like actions, so you can kind of bind webhooks or endpoints to fields or mutations rather. So let's create one and just see what it looks like. Yes, you can create a query or a mutation and create all the type definitions here. And then you can send it to, if you're running Hasura locally, I'm assuming this default is here, or if you use the action-based URL, and then you can pass in the handler there if you've got different environments, or you could just send this to your own serverless function somewhere, and that will obviously you have to return the type here, so that's good. Yeah, that's good. Maybe that is something we could look at for auth. We could create a mutation to register and log in, and we could then send it to that endpoint, and that will do it. Maybe we can explore that there. Remote schemas is also good if you want to kind of embed other APIs. So the services like OneGraph, which is kind of similar. OneGraph is quite nice because they don't allow you to kind of embed your own, but they kind of define. They have like most popular APIs, and they kind of allow you to kind of connect all of the different things between them. So yeah, I don't know. So you have a Zendesk support ticket, and there's a field in there for Salesforce user ID. Well, if you've connected Salesforce, you can kind of just find that user and connect those, and OneGraph take care of all of that. The remote schemas is kind of similar in that way that you can connect other services, but you've kind of got to do more of that yourself. This is just like, I think this is just schema stitching. Automated schema stitching. I don't know if you can kind of connect the services in the same way as OneGraph, but who knows? Events, well, what we got? Events. Cool. So we got background jobs and GraphQL mutations. Okay. This is interesting. This is very interesting for a forum. So, okay, wow. Users. So when a new user is inserted, we could run a webhook to send them a welcome email. I'm going to handle any of that on the front end. Oh my god, this is amazing. This is just like webhooks. Yeah, this is just webhooks, but I'm so happy this is baked in. We then got cron jobs as well, which is amazing. So we can say, okay, this will just be a regular cron job. Let's say at midnight every day, we run this webhook. That's nice. It's a nice scheduled. It's a cron job that's scheduled to happen every night. That's pretty cool. So what could we do there with a forum? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I'm trying to think back. Was there anything that happened? There's nothing really automated like this back then that I can think of. I don't know what would happen on a cron job on a forum. I don't think we need it for what we are building. We then got one-off scheduled events. Again, schedule an event. I'm not sure how this works, but I'm guessing this obviously is this just like a job queue, so you can put into the job queue. I should probably read one-off scheduled events or individual events that can be scheduled reliably to reliably trigger an HTTP webhook to run custom. Okay, this is this is just saying do this. I wonder if you can do this through the API though. This would be cool. So you can add like ad hoc events through the API. It's probably possible. Yeah, it's probably possible. So we're not gonna really use these for what we're doing. What else does Hasura do? Must be a paid upgrade for that. So data, what have we got? We've got our table set up, and we've got our automated GraphQL schema. If I run this again, we'll get an error. Yep, as expected, because we said that the email is unique, along with the ID. And one thing I didn't check actually was we said that email was unique or was a primary key. So if we go to query for a, this is where the name and users by primary key. Okay, cool. So I didn't know whether that, I thought that's what would happen there, but I've just confirmed what I thought, which was because we specified that. We have to pass ID as well? Surely not. Primary key. Well, that's not what I thought. We have to pass in UUID as well as email. I thought there were primary keys. You could just fetch by either. That sucks. Users. So I don't know. Say we have a users page. Let's have a look on our inspiration. Let's have a look at this BFG admin. By the way, I've not checked any of this content, so if it's at all offensive or people don't like it, I am sorry. I've not gone through and checked. I'm just using this as inspiration. So yeah, this is a profile page. So if we wanted to kind of do the same and get information about it, this has a member. This is his username. We've just got email, so maybe his username is something we can do, but I've got name. We've got the ID, so yeah, we're gonna have to. This is what we're gonna have to do in that case. So we're gonna have to do email where email is this, and then return the name. It's not like that. That's probably going to be like, has to be equal to. Yep. Okay, cool. So we've got an array of users by our primary key. I would really like to have done user by primary key. I don't know. We're going to need both of those query. We're going to need user by ID at times, and then it would be nice to have user by email at times from a server side. So when we're creating a new user, we want to just see if there's anyone in the table that has the same email, and that's kind of the unique or the index there. So we kind of need both. So I don't know if it supports kind of optional. If these are optional at all, I'm guessing that's when you have to say it's nullable. But again, maybe this is just something we have to live with. Prettify and run that again. We get the user. Okay, that's not too bad. We can just grab the first response. And we could even go as far as saying limit 1, so it will only limit to 1. So I've got a few people that's joined the stream. So yeah, one question. I've just joined. Are you creating database schemas with it? With it, I imagine you're referring to Hasura. Yes, this is Hasura. I'm creating a database schema with it. I think that's what we're doing. So we've kind of just created a GraphQL schema based on the database tables that we have, and we've kind of created all these relations. The next thing that we want to do is probably set up some permissions, and I know that Hasura has permissions built in. So let's go ahead and we didn't finish setting this up. Oh, okay. Yeah, so a user has threads and posts and likes. Did that work? Refresh the page. That last one didn't work. Save. Oh, okay. What's going on? Right, must have just been a glitch in the matrix. let me just check all these other relationships are set up before we move on. Okay, in this posts, we need to set up likes. So posts can have likes. And then likes belong to a post. So yeah, I've totally forgot about this when we're creating those references. I thought it would have automatically just handled creating the references between the models, but I've kind of got to go and connect both sides of the foreign key, which I guess is fine. It's just not what I'm used to. Yeah, so back in graphical, now we've got those relations. We could say, well, oh, okay, cool. So users have posts, and users have posts have likes. So I could go and query that. I could query for all my threads and on my posts and the messages of my threads. I don't have any, but then I could get the title of that thread. Could also get the author of the thread, and then we could get the author of the post. We don't have any data here, we haven't created any yet, but we've got the kind of the schema working, and those are making all of the optimized requests in the background, which is cool. So yeah, fairly straightforward, to be honest. First time really using Hasura. We've created the schema. You know, it's fairly similar to most of the tools today. Yeah. That was cool. So we've got that all working. Now let's have a look at permissions. Show permissions summary. No rules. Users, permissions. And a new rule. So admin, I'm guessing, is what we're in now. This context or some token that we tell Hasura to use. So our default users, anyone that comes to the forum by default is going to be a guest, right? And we want to, yeah, it's a guest role. Guests can, without any checks, get the ID because we need to go to the page, the name, when they were last seen, because we're going to show that on the page. Maybe it's when they joined, but maybe it's when, you know, not when they were updated. Do we want to allow users to create, select and run aggregate queries? Maybe. Let's say no for now, but maybe in the future we do add the ability. We have the ability for kind of people to show how many users the forum has, which might work. Right. Select, update, delete. Guests can't update any other users, and they certainly can't delete any users. Can a guest insert? I'm not sure. Can they insert? Let's leave that to admin in the serverless function to create users. We don't just want anybody to be able to create users in our database. We want to control the data that goes in and out. Going to be more or less the same because we're going to have an endpoint for this. But I'm guessing let's just leave that as is. Then let's use user as the, maybe it's called as authenticated, or we'll call it user. Users can't insert any users because they're logged in, and they'll follow the same permissions as the guest. Now I don't know, can you inherit permissions? So a user can select, so the user can just do what the guest can do. Can I not inherit any of those? Can a user inherit? Doesn't seem to be. Ah. Clone permissions. Users. That's just cloning though. It's not inheriting, so I couldn't like... It doesn't matter, does it? I'm just trying to think like if I change the base here, it would update the other one there. It might not if we're cloning. I can't even remember what the table was now. Select, role, guest. Apply same permissions. The column permissions and presets will be ignored. So it's just cloning. Yes, we are sure. I think. So let's double check. What? Did I copy the correct ones? User, select, guest, save permissions. That's not... Well, maybe I'm just being really silly and not understand what's going on, but that's not working. So I want to be able to select a user's name, create it at, and update it at an ID. That's what it should have cloned, but it hasn't. Why is that? So user who's logged in can update. But this time, a user can update only their self. Unless they were an admin, but let's not go too wild here. So the users ID must be equal to Hasura ID access control. Wow, landed in the right spot. I love when docs are like that. Okay, user ID. So it looks as though we passed this through as in the request headers, which is reasonable. So collaborators of an article. This is kind of similar to what we're doing. Collaborator of an article is collaborator of themselves. This would be cool actually. This would be cool for like a moderator. Oh, wow. I don't want to blow the scope here, but back on this forum we had different groups of users. So you can see here we've got like super administrator, so you could do everything. Then we had administrators, and then we had super mods and mods. And the permissions varied. Like some people could create pin posts, lock posts, answer posts, and edit other people's posts and delete other people's topics and threads and whatever. But let's not blow our scope out the window just yet. Let's keep this simple. So a user can only update their own profile, which is fine. Post update check. That's going to be without any checks. Nearly clicked as pre-update. Because we can get this data anywhere, right? So we don't need to kind of check whether or not the user is authenticated to get their own name and email, because guests can get that anyway. So we'll get the name, email, create at last seen, and ID. We won't get the email. What do we do? Yeah, let's apply this, and then we can get the email. And that means we can display the email in a form to them. Otherwise, there's no way for us to get that email to the user. I guess there's no way for the user to get the email anyway. That's tricky. Column presets. What is this? Oh, just default values. Okay. Yeah, so the problem that we have now, and if anybody is familiar with Hasura, please let me know. One issue that we have is by default, a guest can only query for name, created at, last seen, and ID, but not email. But I want the current user to be able to get only their email and not be able to get anybody else's. Don't know how to do that, and this doesn't seem clear to me that it's possible. I imagine it is possible, but I'm going to select email on the return type here. And we'll save that permission. And that was for updating. Deleting, that's going to be exactly the same. We don't need the post update because we don't need to query for email. So there doesn't really need to be a check. ID is equal to Hasura ID and save that permission. Okay, cool. So I think we've got the permissions for our user set up. Just conscious of time. This is going to be an hourly thing that's going to happen during my lunch. During the day, whenever I take lunch, I'm just going to kind of take a break from what I'm doing, kind of get involved with Hacktoberfest and work on... That was Siri. And we're going to work on building out this forum script. And I've got all of the issues on GitHub and this repo Jamstack forum. I'm just going to kind of follow along there. So let's see if we can get through the rest of these permissions. So threads. Let's do categories because that's again a top level. See, I've missed another relation. This is it's unless you kind of go and look for all the foreign keys you created, it's very easy to miss that reference stuff here. So if anybody's watching from Hasura, let me know if I'm doing something wrong, or if that's just how it is. But it's very hard to miss. It's very easy to miss those kind of both sides of the relations when you're creating them. So let's get the permissions done for categories because that's a top level thing. Guests and users can't insert categories. Users at some point will be able to create categories if they're an admin, but I'm not going to build an admin for this form script just yet. We'll say Hasura is the admin because we've got what we need here, right? Guests can select without any checks the ID and name of those. And for good measure, we'll say that they can make aggregation queries. And we'll do the same for user. Without any checks, can query the name, ID, and they can also perform the aggregate queries. I would love to have pressed clone, but that didn't seem to work. Categories, nobody else can update or delete anything in the categories. So our permissions for categories is fairly simple. I don't think we need to do anything else there. Okay, cool. So threads. Obviously, we want to insert a new row here, but we want to restrict that. Let's restrict that. Guests. So guests can't create threads, but they can select them without any checks. They can get the ID. They can get everything. And they can query. They can run aggregate queries. And we'll do the same for user. And I'll do it this way because I can't clone, it seems. We'll save that. And yeah, now let's have a look at updating threads. So thread can be updated with custom check. that the author ID is equal to the Hasura ID, and without any checks, they can return everything. And oh, that was a guest. My bad. Guests can't delete or update anything. So let's create that same thing here. Without any checks, they can query for everything. Yes. So this is for a user. The user author ID must match the current Hasura ID. And we'll save that. Now we'll go back to the guest update permission and we'll delete those permissions because guests can't update anything. And users, well, users can delete. They can delete their threads. So I think we're good there. And a user can insert a thread. User can insert a thread. With a custom check. Now the custom check here is that they're logged in. But a user can only post their own posts, right? So the check here would be that again, that author ID is equal to their current ID. I couldn't create a new thread for anybody watching this, for example, if they had an account. I can only create ones for you. Save those permissions. Right, so I think that is all of the permissions set for our threads. Let's move to posts. And just checking any comments. No, we've got someone else join. Thanks for joining. Thanks for joining the stream. Let me know if you've got any questions. And I'll do my best to answer them. Probably not in this video because we're going to be wrapping up in just a second. We're going to finish the posts permissions. First of all, guests can't insert anything, but they can select. Without any custom checks, they're allowed to access everything about the posts because all posts are public and they can perform any aggregate queries on the post table. They can't update, they can't delete anything, so that's our guest permissions done. Let's do the same for users. So again, any type of user can query any field, and they can also perform those aggregate queries. Posts, user. Again, this is the same as the thread. So user must be the user that's logged in that they're creating the post of or on behalf of. I couldn't, again, create posts for anybody. I couldn't create posts for anybody that isn't me. And we'll save that permission there. And then we'll go and ahead and update the permissions for updating posts. Again, with the same check as insert, which is that the user ID is them. And without any custom checks, they can return all of the data. I think we're good here. User can delete with the same check. It must be the user that created the post that can delete their post, and we'll save that permission. And that is looking fine. We could create more roles here. We could create a role for moderator, and a moderator may be able to insert posts not on the behalf of anybody else. A moderator may be able to change I don't know, may be able to change the category that a thread is in because it's been posted in the wrong thread. That would be a good moderator tool to have. So we could maybe add a moderator tool later. Last, we've got one final table to do, which is our relationship, our likes, and we'll edit the permissions for those as well. And yeah, let's finish the video by finishing all of our permissions. So guests can't add any likes, but they can select them. without any checks. They can query for both ends, and they can perform aggregate queries, because I want to count how many likes a post has, with or without a user ID, without being logged in. So a user can also select the same, and there doesn't need to be any permissions, and they can perform those aggregate queries. Brilliant. Now then, users can insert with a custom check that the ID is equal to the header Hasura ID. We'll enable that, and we'll save those permissions. And again, the same goes for updating. Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're going to update likes, so maybe we don't even need that. Oops. We're not going to update likes or the user of a like. We are going to add or remove likes. So I don't think we need that mutation, or the permission to run that mutation at least. But if I want to delete a like, well, same as insert. It must be me. I'm the one that's in control of my likes. Brilliant. So those are the permissions set up. I'm hoping I've done everything right. I think I've covered creating these 5 tables with the relationships and all of the things. So let's just create, before the end of this video, our categories, and we'll create general. Okay, because we're going to call this Jamstack Forum. Let's call one of the categories JavaScript, APIs, and markup. And now if we go to graphical, what we'll be able to do is we'll be able to query for all categories, and we'll be able to get the name of those categories, and then we'll be able to get the threads of those as well. Now we don't have any threads, but again, like before, we can do all those queries because we've set up all of these operations. So that's cool. And I'm guessing we can just customize the headers here. So we can emulate being a user, but let's try and get the app set up today. We'll do that later on tonight. I'll be back streaming later on. We'll create the initial Next.js setup with Tailwind, and we'll maybe get a client query and data. We'll see how far we get. I kind of want to get this issue done. So this issue is done. Can I export this data? I want to save my table. Export metadata. Whoa. So I'm just opening this on a separate window. I'll add that into GitHub. And that is a JSON file. And we'll paste this in here. And we'll close and comment that. So we've got our schema here for Hasura. I imagine, did I see import metadata? So I could just import that into a new system, or if anybody was building this later, they can just import this and kind of get along, get to where I was. So yeah, we're there. This has been kind of episode 1 or live stream 1 of many to come. And we'll be live streaming building a forum software built with Next.js and GraphQL, and we'll be replicating some of my fun childhood memories, which is hanging out on forums that are built with things like XMB and PHP-BB. Now, back in the day, I created my own, and it was really good fun, and it's where I got started with programming, so I think it's very fitting now that I kind of revisit some of that, revisit some of those memories and build something for Hacktoberfest, and hopefully go on to build out even more with more features. So get involved with Hacktoberfest if you are not already. Turn on dark mode if you love dark mode. and sign in and start hacking, and you'll get a free T-shirt, or you can you can plant a tree, which is good. So I'll probably just plant a tree and take part in this event. There's all the FAQs are answered in there, yeah, there's a lot going on. So get involved. Check out GitHub. There's some tags on GitHub that you can get involved with. Check out Hasura if you're interested in following along with what I've done there. But I'll be building all of this on GitHub. So as we kind of progress, it would be great to get some involvement with this and building out features and adding things to it as we go. So hopefully you've enjoyed this video. It will be on YouTube to watch back later, as will all of the videos. And thanks very much, Michael, for watching, and to the other 40 or so people that were all live at once. It's been great. I'll be back on in a few hours, about 5 or 6 hours from now, once I've wrapped up some other work, and I'll continue, and maybe we'll build out the initial project with Next.js and Tailwind. So thank you very much. Have a great day. Happy hacking, happy coding. All the